All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Jaden Vang, and I am here with my partner.
Natalie Sanch.
And this is our oral history project presentation for ASAM 140. So the person we chose to interview was my dad, Hua Vang. I wanted to choose him because he was born in Laos and he still has some memories of his life in Laos and his journey to Thailand and to the US. And it also really helps that he speaks English, so everyone who listens to our presentation and or like his interview could understand him without the language barrier. These are some photos of my dad, my older brother Brandon, and I. I'm the little one, the youngest one. My dad is currently in his early 40s now, and he came to the US in the early 90s when he was about 9 years old.
Mr. Vang's life before coming to the US revolved around hunting, fishing, farming, and some schooling. He lived in a small village in the mountains of Laos, attending a local school as a second grader. Then he would spend most of his time tending to his family farm. He mentioned that his family practiced the slash and burn farming technique while farming rice, corn, daily vegetables, and opium. During his free time, he would go fishing and hunt small game with his wooden crossbow with his other friends in the village.
So my dad left to Thailand at about the age of 7 or 8. My dad is the third youngest of 16 children, being the second to last son. Many of his siblings died, mostly from sicknesses or at young ages, and some died during the war. Only four of his siblings made it to the US. He still remembers the day that he left his parents to leave for Thailand. He was playing with his in his village with his friends when his mom called him to come home. And when he got home, his mom gave him some sandals, new pair of pants, and among some other things. His mom told him to go with his brothers through the mountains and to stay away from the main trails to get to the next village, to stay away from the Vietnamese soldiers. He told me that his older brothers wanted to play it safe, and so what they did was they had to keep getting permission from the government to move from one village to another, trying to get closer and closer to the Laos and Thailand border. That way, they didn't have to cross the Mekong, because they had been hearing the horrific stories from other families and soldiers that, were trying to cross the Mekong. And so once they got to the last village before crossing the border, they had to wait a few weeks until their names were called to leave. At the time, it had only been my dad and a few of his siblings that left to Thailand first. They left in a group with other families, and they were all guarded by about 3 to 4 Thai soldiers. And the way he described the journey was that they would hold on to the person in front of them and behind them, and they would walk in a straight line, night and day, for days on end until they got across the border. And they knew that they couldn't stop to rest whenever they wanted to because they were constantly being chased by Vietnamese soldiers. And so when they did rest, the Thai soldiers would set a perimeter and they would only take a very short rest before getting back up and walking to the border again. And then when they did get across to Thailand, about 6 months later, his parents came with a different group, and his parents' group had to go a whole different route because they didn't want to run into the Vietnamese soldiers that were, following his group.
Life in the refugee camps was not easy. Mr. Vang moved to about 2 to 3 different camps. The first place that he lived was called Kek Nai. He described it as having the most freedom. There were only a few rules, lots of open space, and they could farm and hunt. This gave him and his family a sense of freedom and self-reliance. Then they were relocated to the refugee camp called Ban Napo. Here he said it felt like his freedom was gone. The entire camp was fenced off. They could not farm or hunt and had very few liberties. They lived in a structure that was basically a shed with concrete walls, aluminum roof, no mattress, no chairs, no heating or air conditioning. They slept on the floors and survived on food rations from the United Nations truck that would come to the camp every Tuesday and Saturday. He says that they were lucky to have family in the United States who would send them money once a month to help them survive. Their final stop before moving to the US was the Sikio holding center, waiting for their names to be called to leave for the US here. Oh, wait. Here, the living conditions were worse as they were more cramped. Once their names were called, they grabbed what little belongings they had and boarded a bus heading to Don Mueang International Airport in Bangkok. His family was sponsored by a church in the US that helped cover the cost of their airfare, and his brother had to make $20 payments every month until it was fully paid off. They boarded their flight and they first landed in San Francisco.
So this is a photo of my dad and other kids in his age in a refugee camp. He's the little kid on the far bottom left side in that little blue shirt. And he says that he doesn't remember anybody's like names in this photo. And so, yeah, I was lucky enough to find this photo, but yeah, if you know anybody that looks familiar, like, please let me know. That would be helpful for my dad. I'm sure he would be very excited to, hear their names again and even get to meet him. That'd be amazing. Yeah. And so my dad was 9 years old when he got to the US in San Francisco. And, seeing the tall buildings, the streets, the cars, and grocery stores was a big culture shock for him. He had family already living in Fresno, so they eventually found their way into Fresno to live with them. And his family was already, since they were already living in Fresno, they were able to help them get their first apartment at Somerset Village until it burned down in 1996. He said that here it was known for being a resettlement hub for the Southeast Asian refugees. So they were still surrounded by people who shared their language, their culture, experiences. And he said that it just made adjusting to life in a new country less overwhelming.
Adjusting to the new lifestyle was difficult, but clearly not impossible. One of the first challenges that Mr. Vang and his family faced was transportation. He told us that back in Laos and Thailand, they walked everywhere. Then coming to the US, nothing was walkable, and no one in his family could drive yet. For the first year or two, they had to rely on walking and public transportation. His older brother was the first person in his family to get his driver's license. While it made things easier, it was still difficult. Clearly, one of the obvious obstacles they had to overcome was the language barrier. Mr. Vang's parents were too old to learn the language to work, and it was very difficult for them to learn a new language at such an old age. Mr. Vang can exactly remember when he learned English. He says that it's kind of just happened. A big culture shock to him when it came to communication was that in his culture, he would avoid eye contact with the elders as a sign of respect. But here in the US, looking someone in the eyes was a show of respect. So you could see how confusing that could be coming from a different culture. When he started school in Fresno, he was placed in the fifth grade ESL classes when he settled in Fresno, and his English was limited to yes, no, ABC, and my name is. Although with these adversities, Mr. Vang was still able to excel in math and English. By middle school, he was taking regular English and algebra classes as other kids were. In high school, he started taking AP trigonometry and AP calculus. He became a peer counselor. He was on the school's math team, played sports like soccer and track, and was a member of different clubs. He eventually went on to earn his bachelor's of science degree in criminology and worked in probation for 17 years before retiring and stepping into the entrepreneurial world.
Yeah, so my dad said that maintaining the Hmong culture and traditions has not been easy. Everything about our culture and traditions has always been passed down by word to mouth, and it requires a deep knowledge. And it makes it more difficult that, nothing is written and not exactly easy to learn. And so life in the US offers more convenience, better educational and job opportunities. He told me that he was so focused on learning English, working hard, and building a future like his parents had told him. But in doing that, he left some of the traditions behind. The last question that I was able to ask my dad was, is there a story you'd like to share? My dad was able to share with me about how poor they were. They relied on food stamps, welfare, clothes donated by churches and the Salvation Army. And on the weekends, they would go to nearby farms to work and pick strawberries tomatoes and peppers for about $20 a weekend. His family came from nothing and had an entire different culture, lifestyle, and language, and yet they were still able to come up from nothing in order to be successful in the US. And for that, he says he's grateful for the opportunity to live in the US and to have the opportunity to do something with his life. And he certainly gives the credit to his parents for their strength and determination to survive and thrive in such a new environment. That's the end of our presentation. Thank you for your attention.